Hi there. In this video, we will see how you can use Authorizer with your NextJS application. NextJS is a framework built on top of React, which gives us production-ready features like static site rendering, server-side rendering, smart bundling, routing, and much more. You can check their docs to see how you can get started. Also, for this particular tutorial, we will be using Tailwind CSS to make our application look better. Tailwind CSS is a CSS framework which comes with tons of built-in classes and takes away the pain of writing the basic CSS. In order to get started, we can use with Tailwind CSS example from Next.js. So this is the command to get started. Here I will mention authorizer demo as the application name. This will bootstrap a Next.js application with the Tailwind configuration. So we can route to that particular directory, open that in our code editor, and we can start this application in dev mode. So as you can see, our application is up and running. We can make few tweaks over here to have the navigation bar so that we will be able to navigate through the various pages or routes that we declare. For that, I will create a file called nav in the components folder. Here I will export a function. This returns a JSX. Let's style it. So I will justify the content with space between. We'll put items in center, width should be full. Let's add some padding X and padding Y as 8. Border bottom. The first section over here will be of logo or our application name. So let's add the link to it. Authorizer demo link href to the root page. We'll import the link component from next link. Now we'll use this navigation component inside our layout component. So let's declare our layout.js. Export default function layout. This will have a prop called children. It again returns a JSX. Now we can copy the common code from our index.js to layout. So our head section will remain common for this demo application. So I'll put that inside layout. Our footer will remain common. So I'll move that to layout again. This is our container. So I will again move this container in the layout. And I'll remove this closing div. Also, I'll move this head import to the layout. And here I will import the nav component. Inside this container, we will render children. And now we can use this layout as a wrapper component for all our pages. So here, let's say we have this layout as a wrapper component. Alright, now let's quickly test how our application looks like. So this looks great. Now inside nav we can add links to various pages that we will have. Right now, let's say we have link to a login page. And let's give this class and make this blue color link. And when someone hovers, we can make this text as 400. So this will give a good effect, hover effect. Alright, so our basic application is ready. Now, next we need an authorizer instance. So you can deploy authorizer on your cloud or your infrastructure using Kubernetes or binary, or you can also deploy it on Heroku and play with it. For demo purpose, I have deployed this on Heroku and have configured few environment variables like Google secrets, Facebook secrets, GitHub secrets that will allow us to enable Facebook login, Google login, and GitHub login. So we can open this app and this becomes our authorizer URL. So our authorizer instance is there. Next, we need to install this AuthorizeReact package. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, now that AuthorizeReact is installed, we can configure the provider component. NextJS has a special app component which wraps all the routes, and this is the place where you can initialize any global CSS or global providers. So here we will import AuthorizeRProvider and let's wrap whole application with this provider. AuthorizeRProvider accepts a prop called config. Now we can declare our config in a separate file. So I will create a folder called config and have something called authorizer-config.js, and here we export default authorizer URL as the URL that we got from the Heroku app, and redirect URL is the URL where we want to redirect our users after they log in. So http localhost 3000, that is where my application is running. Now I will use this config object over here, so authorizer config. Once the provider is configured, we can create a login page and use this authorizer component. So let's create a login route inside pages, login.js, export default function login. This returns a JSX. Let's wrap this inside layout again, and we will have a div which will have some styles, and this will have authorizer component. Let's give width as 3/4 of the screen. And now if we go to login page, you can see we have some components which render the sign up with Google, GitHub, and Facebook buttons. This looks too big, so we'll make it little small, and let's make it mobile first. So we will have width full and starting MD, that is a medium screen, we would have like 2/4 of the screen used. This looks little better. Awesome. Now that we have our login page, next thing we would like to do is change the state whenever user is logged in, and we should redirect user to the home page. So we will do that in our login page first, that if user is logged in, so we get use authorizer hook which returns the token in one object, and we can say use effect if token router dot push to home page, and this would change based on token. We get router from use router hook of NextJS, and we'll have to import use effect from React. So that's all. Inside layout, we can add one more change, that is we can again use authorizer hook and get the loading state. If loading, then we would like to return h1 with a loading information. Let's make this little larger text, so text to Excel. Now if you load the application, you can see it's loading first and then your application gets loaded. Now if we go back to our nav component, we would like to render here a logout button whenever user is logged in, right? So again we will use const user from use authorizer hook. In case if user object is present, then we would like to render a button with a logout text, else we can render this login link. We can give same classes to our button so that it looks little better. Alright, let's quickly test this. I would like to highlight one particular mistake that I made while configuring Authorizer Instance was instead of writing redirect as a object key, you will have to use redirect URL. So now if I try to log in with Google, you will see that I'm logged in and I see a logout button over here. Though we haven't written anything for the logout button, so let's go ahead and write the logout action call. So this will be a const on logout. This will be asynchronous function. Now use authorizer also returns us few more methods called setUser, setToken, and it also returns us authorizer-ref, which is actually a reference to authorizer.js instance. So here I can set user to null, set token to null, and I will await authorizer-ref dot logout method. We can call this logout handler on click of the logout button. So let's quickly test this. When I click, it again comes back to the login state because now user is not there. Awesome. So this is how you can use Authorizer in your Next.js application. But I would like to highlight one more feature over here that Next.js gives us, that is server-side rendered prop. So whenever your route is rendered on server side, what if you want to make sure that if there is user on server side, then only you allow them to access that particular page. So you can always do that check on front end using the use authorizer hook. You will know whether the token is there or not. But let's create a page which actually uses the server side props. So here I will create a page called profile.js. Let's add link to it in our navigation. I will add that link above the logout button. So this page is only accessible when there is a user. Let's again add the same classes to this one. And we will add margin right as 10 pixels so that there's some spacing between logout and profile button. Here we will export a function called profile which will return some JSX. Now let's say we get user as a prop from server and we would like to render this user information. So we'll wrap this in layout. We'll have a div, or let's just have a pre-tag and render this JSON. So JSON.stringify user null 2. Let's check the Next.js documentation on how to get server-side props. So getServerSideProps. In order to do that, we'll have to export this function from the profile page itself. And whatever props are passed over here, our profile page will get that pre-rendered. Now this context object has request and response. So we can get token from the request object over here. So request dot cookies. Let's say if authorizer client cookie is present, then we have the token. And in order to get the user information using this token, we will need authorizer.js library. So I will go ahead and install that. Alright, so let's start our dev server again. And here we will create authorizer ref. There is a new authorizer, but instead of importing it from React, we'll import it from authorizer.js. And this again expects authorizer config as its parameter. Now we can get session over here is equals to await. So await authorizer ref dot get session, and this particular function can take header. If you are calling this function from front end where the cookie is already set, you may not need to pass the header, but in case if you are calling from server side, you may have to pass headers. So here we will pass authorization header with a bearer token, which we have got from cookies. And if session is there, we will return this props with user information as session.user, else we will return props as null, and we will also have something called redirect over here where we can set the destination. So in case if a user is not logged in and if they are trying to access the profile page, then we would like to redirect them to login page. And so yeah, now profile page will have this server side prop, and it will try to check whether this cookie is present or not. Now this cookie may not be present because here if we try to log in, and if we check the cookies, we have just authorizer cookie, and this is specific to Heroku domain, so we may not have access to this cookie in our localhost. In ideal world, you will deploy authorizer on the same domain as of your application, so you can reuse this cookie. But in case if you are hosting it separately on a different domain, then you may need to add some hack. So here I'm going to add a hack where we define this authorizer client cookie, but we will make sure that we define this in the secure manner. So inside the API routes, I will create a session.js file, and we will have an API which sets this cookie from the backend whenever called. So we'll have this API which will set the cookie from the backend. So here, let's say whenever this was successful, we would like to send message session created successfully. And here we would like to read the request data. So const data is equals to json.parse request.body. In request.body, we will have access token. And we will also have when this access token expires at. So data.access token expires at. These are the two keys that we will get from the request body. Now, if this is not present, so if not access token or not expires at, we would like to send a response of 401, and we can just say that you are trying to access the route without this data, so you are unauthorized user. Else we will set the token in the response. So response.setHeader. Inside setHeader we can set cookie, and here we will set this authorizer client cookie with the access token, and when it will expire, this will be secure in nature and this will be HTTP only cookie, so this will not harm your application in a way that someone trying to access or inject a script and trying to access document.cookie, then this cookie will still not be accessible to them. So this is a secure way of setting cookie in your Next.js application. This is the hack because we are not hosting our authorizer instance on the same domain for this particular demo. If it's on same domain, then you may not need this hack at all. Alright, so next what we will do is we will try to call this session API inside our app file, and here with AuthorizeRProvider we get onToken callback. This expects an asynchronous function which you can use, and this is only called when you have a token or user. In this case we are not going to use user, so we'll just keep it as it is, and here we will say await fetch /API/session method will be post, and body will be json.stringify token. So whenever we will have token, this will set the session for our Next.js application, and this will set HTTP only cookie using this particular API. So let's quickly test this. So as you can see, it set this authorizer client cookie for your localhost domain, and still if you do document.cookie, you will not get these cookies. So we are good there, and this is secure. Now if we try to access our profile page, you can see we have this user information. But now there's one more challenge, that is whenever the user logs out, you will also have to delete this cookie. So for that I'll make one more API called logout.js. It will be a function similar to hello API. We'll just call it logout API, and we'll set the response header again over here. Now we will set the authorizer client as empty, and we will set expire as -1, so this will delete the cookie. And here we can set message logged out successfully. Let's call this API inside our nav component where we have the logout handler. So we will await fetch /API/logout. And also we can add one more thing over here, that is whenever user logs out, we would redirect them to the home page. So so we'll use a router with use router hook, and on logout we'll say router.push to home page. So now if we log in again, we check the profile page, we log out, and we will be redirected to home page. Alright, so our Next.js demo is done. I hope this helps you integrating Authorizer in your application wherever you are using Next.js. And if you face any issues, please raise a GitHub issue, or you can also join our Discord channel and raise your issue there. Thank you.